Hello, welcome to a new episode of What Are You Selling with me, David Green. And with me today, I'm delighted to be joined with debut novelist and author of the Warminster series, J.V. Hilliard. How are you doing here today?
I'm doing well, sir, and thank you very much for having me on the show this morning. I appreciate that.
No, not at all. I've been looking forward to chatting with you because obviously we'll get really into the book later on. But one of the things that kind of jumped out to me about this book was that it only came out, 5 or 6 weeks ago, but it's so well reviewed as soon as it's come out, which is for a debut novelist. Reviews are one of the hardest things to get. And not only good reviews as well, but I mean on Amazon where this book is available. I think on .com, I think it's on 59 reviews so far, and it's pretty much, I think it's 4.9 out of 5 as well, which is like superbly consistent. So congratulations on that.
Well, thank you for that, and I am honored that my readership, albeit I'm assuming small and containing many of my family and friends, here in the beginning have been rating me that. But I've noticed, like week one, it might have been some people that I knew, but now a lot of those reviews are from people that I have no contact with. I don't know who they are. It's kind of taking on its, kind of its organic growth. So I'm glad to see that people are liking what they're reading, and I'm hoping I'm going to be able to give them more in books 2, 3, and 4.
Yeah, and that's the best thing, isn't it? It's great to get nice reviews off your family and friends. Mainly my reviews off my family and friends at the start were like, "You didn't know you could write." It's like, well, neither did I, to be honest. We got there in the end. But it's great to get ones from people that you have no idea who they are, and they just genuinely like the stuff that you're doing.
Yeah, I started to get requests for reviews, and I think that it's, first of all, as I said earlier, it's an honor that people would take time out of their day and consider doing something like that for any author. But I'm blessed to have more than most as a debut author at this point in it. Like you said, I mean, the book really only came out in ebook fashion back in mid-December, and then we did our official launch January 5th. And since that time, I've picked up people around the world. What's the strangest thing that's happened to me is people asking me to send them, paperbacks signed. Like the first autograph request was a little strange. That one you have to kind of get over, and it was from places that I didn't expect too. I had a request out of Serbia. I've had a number out of Australia, obviously UK and US. I've gotten some of those, but my first request for an autograph came from Serbia. And so, sending that, customs mail was a lot of fun, and it was an honor to get that, and I'm hoping for many more. But I think that that there, if I've had an awkward moment, it was that email saying, "Could you please sign a copy for me and send it, and I'll pay for it." So I've gotten over it. I'm actually happy with it, and I'm hoping for many more. But we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, it's a great feeling, isn't it? Because I'm based in Ireland, so there's not a lot of people in Ireland compared to other countries, and not a lot of fantasy readers in Ireland compared to a lot of other countries. So a lot of the stuff that I would do will go abroad, UK, Ireland, Europe, Australia as well. And it's always funny when you get that, but people say, well, do you ship internationally? And it's like, yes, I do. It's like, I will send it anywhere. I don't care. Right?
Yeah, so it was flattering is the best way to put it. It was that first one, I asked my wife, I was like, wow, look at this, I'm going to send this overseas. And she was like, that's great. And to me, that I couldn't have been more flattered. So thank you to Emily from Serbia.
So have you always been a fantasy reader? I know you said before that when we talked off air, you said you like the kind of like escapism from real life because you have enough real life. So has it always been something that you've been a fan of?
I became a fan of it in my elementary school days. I had a teacher that had gone on a health sabbatical, and it was at the end of a year. And the permanent substitute teacher that had come in for the last month or so of the school year decided that he was going to read us The Hobbit. And like that, at that point, I was hooked. There were so many things that I liked about it. I liked the magic. The characters, the words, the even like the battle scenes, and it was just something that hooked me. And there were times when he was reading it to the class, and let's face it, he's dealing with third graders and fourth graders. These are kids that can't sit still. I mean, the class was enthralled. I mean, the class was silent at times, and some people were crying at certain scenes. I won't say which, and I won't say if it was me or someone else. But I will say that, you know, that's what kind of hooked me in. And then I told my uncle about it, and my uncle was paralyzed in the Vietnam War, and my mother was his nurse, and I grew up basically in his house. I mean, she helped him on a daily basis recover, but he was very limited in what he could do. So one of the things he was doing was creative writing. That was something on an old school typewriter he could do. And he got me involved in the creative writing stuff. But for that Christmas, he bought me my first Dungeons and Dragons set, and he got me my own set of Lord of the Rings. And I ate it up. I mean, I voraciously read through The Hobbit myself, the Lord of the Rings series. He read to me. It was a little bit beyond where I could be at that point. And then we started playing Dungeons and Dragons. And that's the kind of thing that hooked me in. And I, to this day, I still play with friends that we played with in high school and college via Skype, or, you know, we're now transitioning to some of the other systems that allow for maps and stuff like that. But it's still something, you know, 2 decades on, that we're still playing together, and we're all scattered across the country now, and, you know, with families and other obligations. And it's something that first hook that happened with The Hobbit just made me a permanent fan of the genre.
Yeah, I'd be the same. I think I got into it a little bit through I grew up in England, so it was a lot of Arthurian legends, especially where I grew up in England, because it's in a place called Manchester, which is quite close to the Welsh border. So it's a lot of Arthurian kind of influence around Wales, and we had family in Cornwall again, which had that kind of thing. So we grew up with that kind of stuff. But then The Hobbit was the first. I still have the same copy that I had when I was like 7. I know I was 7 years old because I wrote in it my name,
That's
my
great.
name and my address down to the universe that we're in as well. I did it. So yeah, that was, and I have it because I want to kind of read it to my son when he's a little bit older, so when he can appreciate it a little bit more. So yeah, it's great to see The Hobbit. So what happened after The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings and D&D? Did you kind of start exploring more of the fantasy worlds?
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, the Arthurian legends for us, I mean, again, it was something that was close knit, very closely tied to The Hobbit. And then with the Dungeons and Dragons and the proliferation of the game, when TSR sold and became Wizards of the Coast, and they reinvigorated the game, there was a number of books that had come out, and when some of them focused on Dragonlance and Ravenloft and adaptations of adventures or adaptations of books that were brought into the Dungeons and Dragons family. And my favorite amongst them was the Drizzt Do'Urden series, the Dark Elf trilogies, from Homeland through, I think Salvatore has like 39 books now. And the characters there reminded me of you know, what we had done. And so what I took The Last Keeper, and the idea behind the Realm of Warminster really came through a memorialization of 20 plus years of playing the game. And some of the character names and some of the plot lines were plots that we used on our own adventures, obviously changed to fit the plot of the overall book, and some of the character arcs needed to be different. And, you know, I borrowed from Tolkien, I borrowed from Dungeons and Dragons, I borrowed from, you know, Martin and others that are like from Game of Thrones for different parts of the realm. Obviously, it needed to be different, it had to be unique. But I think, you know, people will recognize, you know, that, you know, the magic systems have at their root things that go back to reading Harry Potter, you know, like stuff like that too. So there's a little bit in there for everybody. There's a familiarity, but it's a unique system, and I think that the memorialization of that, you know, there's enough Easter eggs that I put in there for my my friends and family that had played with me over the course of the years, that they'll recognize names, they'll recognize situations and say, aha, I was there for that. And I think that part was fun. That part was fun. The other side of it, which I think that I've only shared with a few people, is that one of the main characters in the novel, Damus Alaric, he's a seer, he's a prophet, and he has these series of recurring dreams, more like nightmares. And he's trying to learn how to control that power, because those nightmares are showing him the future, showing him the way. And his ancient, which is the term I use for his god, his ancient is leaning him in a certain direction to do things. But as a young man, he doesn't know how to control it yet. And the idea for that actually came from a series of recurring nightmares I had when I was about the same age as Damus in the book. I was 16 or 17. I was nearly going off to college, and I had these similar recurring nightmares, obviously different than the ones Damus has, but the idea for the character and the idea for his plot line and how it ties into the villain, I think came from those. And I think that's, something that's fun. It's bringing something that was a personal experience that I had and adding it to the novel.
Awesome. Well, that's the way a lot of it done. And that's one of the things that kind of, when I started getting interested in doing writing, again, through the creative writing route in Ireland, it was a lot of, people writing about real life, non-fiction and what have you. And, that's not where my interests lie. And a lot of the people, one of the people that was running the course was kind of like, you have to write what you know, right? So don't bother with this fantasy stuff and sci-fi and what have you. And I was like, well, you can still put what you know into these settings, because it's not, if everyone just wrote what they knew, then we wouldn't have all these fantastical worlds and landscapes to escape into. It'd be just what people knew, right? And I think people take it, I mean, it is a good piece of advice for writing, and I think people take it too literally, where it's like, well, I have to just write about everyday life. You can take those examples like recurring nightmares or an experience that you've put it into a character that's set in, wherever it is that you set the story.
Yeah, and I think that also kind of leads to another point. I mean, parts of the book are political, not real life political, but my world professionally is politics, and I do a lot of work with the defense and tech industries, and so I did exactly that. I mean, some of my personal experiences, I was able to change and weave into the story based on the stuff I've seen in places like Washington D.C. and in some of the foreign military sales that I've worked on, and other even local politics. They say all politics are local. And one of the things that I thought was an interesting play was I created a city that it doesn't appear until the second novel, but the city is called Abacus. And that city is sort of a scholar city, a city of invention, but it's a fantasy invention place. So it's not, but it's one of the things I've always found is if you look at these stories, these fantasy stories, where they're 5,000 years old or 10,000 years old, they're still using swords and armor. And it's like some sort of technology or something new had to have been discovered. And I think a lot of them reach back and say it's a lost magic or it's a lost lineage or whatever. And here I'm able to kind of weave in a bit of science fiction into a pretty widely fantasy adventure, sword and sorcery kind of novel. Right. And I think fans of that will see that in books 2 and 3 and beyond, some of the inventions that come out of Abacus, which is really the Pentagon or NASA or some of the other departments and agencies of the federal government I've worked with, seeing how they incent new technologies and how they're used for providing for the common defense or promoting a general welfare. So
the lack of technological advancement in many fantasy worlds is quite fascinating, actually, isn't it? I remember my first fantasy book. It it's quite political in some aspects as well. It was written when Brexit was going on and all that kind of stuff, and I was kind of influenced by all that. And not overtly, but it's in there. But I remember there's a prologue that I had set thousands of years before the main bit, which ties into the main story. And I remember my publisher saying, like, how come nothing has changed in this like 5,000 years? And I was like, well, that's just fantasy, isn't it? And she was like, well, 5,000 years is a long time, right? And I was like, I know, but like, look at like, Lord of the Rings or whatever that's been set. There's like hundreds of thousands of years of history there where it's just remained the same. So we came to a compromise where I shifted the timeline a little bit to make it more palatable for her, like 2,000 years or whatever. But one of my favorite series is Wheel of Time, and that addresses that a little bit as well, because after the breaking of the world, there's always like a massive kind of catastrophe every 1,000 years, what sets everyone back a little bit to keep them in this kind of pre-industrial revolution setting, which I always thought was quite interesting to kind of get around that, because a lot of people just ignore it and they just go, you know what, it's just fantasy. That's just the way it is.
Yeah, but you look and you could find that in a lot of the world building, whether it's the Robert Jordans of the world or the Terry Brookses of the world. You'll see how they have that reset button,
Yeah.
or there, like you said, there is a cataclysmic event that happened, and or even like I just got done watching the Witcher series on Netflix, and they've always referred to a certain point in time that happened that created the world that they're in, and it makes sense. But for me, I wanted to have a little bit of fun with it, and that's been the most strikingly fun part of what I've done with the Warminster series is you're the author, you have the license to do whatever you want, and it's really that world building. It's like seeing something and not just using a Tolkien elf or not just using an orc or something that we've seen in other places. These are new. My monsters are called cryptids, because no one has seen them. They haven't been discovered yet, or they're the kind of races that I have for some of my characters are things that other people haven't seen. So I have the ability, to tweak them and make them my own. And that's been a lot of fun. It's not necessarily what I started out to do, but I was encouraged to do it, and now I love doing
it. Yeah, cool. So let's talk about the Warminster series. Book one, Last Keeper, which is published by Dragon Moon Press. It came out, as I said, in mid-December. Where did you get well, obviously we know kind of where you got the idea from in terms of like it came from your D&D sessions and your real life experiences. But when did you get the idea to say, you know what, I have a story here that I want to sit down and write?
Yep. Yeah, it's been a story that's been rattling around in my head for 20 years. And so for me, it was just finding the matter of time to do it. And my professional world, that was very difficult to do. And then I'm sure this is a story you've heard many times in the last 18 months. COVID hit, and there was no travel. I live, in Pittsburgh, which is not far from DC, but I wasn't allowed to go to any buildings. And so, travel and business ground to a halt in many respects for 6-8 months. My professional life became Zoom meetings like this, and doing things remotely. And I found myself having extra time. And I just said to my wife, I said, look, something I've always wanted to do. And she said, well, if you're not going to do it now, I don't know when you're going to do it. And I got to be honest with you, I now regret not doing it earlier. If I could rewind the clock, this is something, there's no stress to it. It's so much fun. And the reaction you get from people, especially people that don't know that, I've played Dungeons and Dragons or watched this kind of movie or read this kind of genre, and they know me as professional Joe, and now they get to know me as author Joe. It blows their mind. They're like, I didn't know you had this in you. I'd never heard this, never came up, and it's just because they just didn't know me in that capacity. And now I can't imagine a time where I wouldn't be writing. I got invited to be a monthly serial writer for Altered Reality magazine, which is an
Oh,
online
yeah.
magazine, and I started The Element of Time, which is a different story about a time elemental. Again, staying close to the fantasy adventure stuff, but also, I look at that and I say to myself, I just can't. I love getting up and writing. And now it's like my work is my distraction. Like I want to get back to writing.
Yeah.
So it's just, now that that passion and creativity has been released, I'm really enjoying the direction that this is going, and I hope it becomes successful so that I can do it full time.
Of course, yeah, that's the dream. And you said before that you've got books 2, 3, and 4. So is it a plotted out series, or is it kind of loosely, where it's going?
Oh, you used the word right there. I am a plotter. I am a
Right.
planner. I am OC. So I already know what was going to. I write my stories reverse engineered, right? Like I know the ending before I know how it starts, and I know where I want them to go. And so, yes, it is plotted out. I even have. You can't see it from this angle, but if I were to turn you around, I've got a whiteboard with story arcs from all of my characters and where they intersect and where it comes to the final part of the 4 book series. And that's just the way I think. I've talked to a lot of folks that are pantsers and they write these things, and I can't sit down and do it. It's not me. And I love people that can do it. I wish I could be them, because they'll sit there and pound out 15,000 words, and then it's like, oh, where's this going? And they're like, I don't know, for me, it would drive me nuts. Like I can't write that way. So, I thought I kind of drew out the plot. I knew where I wanted to go. I had a couple of brainstorming sessions with friends, and then ultimately with my publisher, with my development editor, my copy editor, my beta readers, and they've, some of that changed the direction of the story, or improved it, I should say, might be the better term for it. And it was through that groupthink that I was able to put together, I think, the best story of what will be the Warminster series.
And do you find that brainstorming and development sort of thing with publishers and friends helpful with your process?
Yeah, I find it almost invaluable in a couple of ways. I mean, all writers at some point have writer's block,
Mhm.
or you're too close to something to see where the problem is. And a lot of times there are things that are just gaps that you need others to kind of help you fill in. And if you talk to other creative people, they don't have to be authors. They just have to be willing listeners, people that have a creative bend to them, that will be willing to share their thoughts. If you tell someone a plot line, and they listen to you and they ask questions, and that, I think, begets answers. That pulls the novel or what you're doing in that direction, or it breaks that writer's block up. And so I'm never shy about jumping on the phone with someone that helps me do that. In fact, I have a couple of close friends that get calls from me at weird times during the day and night, trying to do that. But I find that incredibly helpful, and I would encourage other writers that may not do that to do it, because I've found it's worked for me.
Yeah, I like that process as well. I'm kind of in between a plotter and a pantser. I'd say I'm a planter, right? I know the beginning, I know the middle, and I know the end. I have a couple of little bits where I'm like, this has to happen and this has to happen. But then how I get there, I can surprise myself sometimes. But it
Yeah,
also,
that's not me. I wish I had that bone in my body, and I've tried to do that and sit down and just start writing, and I always stall out. It's something I think it's unique to that kind of writer. And I'm jealous of it, because I can't do it.
yeah, it's fun. I mean, it's good. I can see I'm able to kind of see the benefits of both sides of it, because having it plotted out, I'm kind of like, right, okay, yeah, I'm comfortable where it's going. I'm glad that I don't have to kind of think about, well, how am I going to tie all this together and everything? Because I know where it's going, and then, but also then I like to have that little bit where it's like, this might be interesting. But then the con of that is that I'm working on a sequel to one of my books in a minute, and it has grown to a humongous size. that I wasn't expecting it to be. Right? And there's been subplots and people going off on adventures and everything like this. And I'm just kind of like, I'm just going to keep writing this until it's 200,000 words, and then I'll see what I'm going to do with it, I think.
Yeah, so you have to break it up in the yeah. So
Yeah.
mine is so bad from a planner perspective. Literally, like there are nuggets. You can. There's no wasted space in my novels. Like literally, like there's a point. I'll. This isn't a spoiler alert or anything like that, but there's a point in the first book where Ambassador Docre Elspeth, who is the father of one of the main characters in the book, he's a diplomat, and he's going to see King Godwin in Thronehelm, and he introduces saying he says, "May your reign last until the stars fall from the skies," and that means something. Everybody's going to think that's just a pleasantry that's shared between diplomats and kings and things like that, but it literally means something. And like I said, I don't say something if it doesn't have a meaning. I just it's sad. It's so sad. I wish it wasn't the case, but it is true. And I am, yes, a very guilty plotter.
No, there's nothing wrong with it, right? Yeah, like it's a dirty word, really, or something. But I have space in my heart for plotters and pantsers. It's all good for
Yeah.
me. I don't mind.
I
So,
come from like I've been a dungeon master for forever, man. So like for me, you have to plan everything, and then of course your player characters blow it up in front of you. Like last week, we had a session where I literally the characters at 4th level, and I planned on the current plot going to 10 or 12th level, and it all blew up. And so this week I had to really restart over because they destroyed my plot utterly, and there's no recovery from it. I won't go into it, but let's just suffice it was a very fun session, but at the end I was disappointed because I had to kind of start from scratch, and just as well. So I think that's where it's grown from.
right. Well, that would be the taste of a life as a pantser anyway, because that is what happens. They have an idea and it's like, oh, this turned out completely different. But then they can go back to that idea at another time. So, what's the rest of 2022 looking for you? I mean, we're just at the start of it, but what are you looking to release the second book this year?
I expect that the second book will come out sometime in the summer. It will be called Voradin's Lair, and the third book might, if I'm lucky, be out end of the year or first of the year. So maybe summertime for the second, and fall, late autumn, or winter for the third one, and then the fourth one will come out and be the final part of the series sometime Q1 or Q2 of next year.
Excellent. That's good. So a nice kind of rapid release there as well. So
yeah, and my books are, that's hard to say when the average size of your book is 470 words or 470 pages and 130,000 words. That's my kind of rapid release. I see a lot of these folks that are like once a month their stuff is coming out, and that's a tough cycle. And again, I think that's just the kind of books they're writing and the size of the books they're writing. And with epic fantasy, it's hard to do that, but at least that's the goal. So we'll see where it goes. And I'm much better now that I've got the first one out of the way. I know what I did wrong, and it's helped me learn how to do these others faster and better. So that's where I'm heading with that. And then the other part of your question is, spending the summer promoting the first one, right? So we've got the spring and summer conventions will start up, and I plan on attending a lot of geekathons, and nerd conventions and hitting those hard, as well as like blog tours and doing stuff like this. I think anything I can do to promote the series and promote the books, I think will be helpful. So I'm all guns blazing.
Excellent. Well, very best of luck with it, and you'll have to come on again towards the end of the year, and we can kind of talk about the rest of it.
I'd love to do that, and thank you very much. I appreciate the support and the consideration for having me on today.
No problem at all, because I have the book, so I'm looking forward to reading it and then getting into the second one as well when it comes out in the summer. So everyone that's been watching on YouTube or listening on Apple Music or Spotify, all of Joe's links for his social media and for the books will be in the show notes below. So please do check those out and say hello to Joe as well if you see him around the place. And thank you very much for staying with us till the end. From me and Joe, thanks, Megan, and see you next time.
Thank you, guys.